There's power in taking a photograph. There's power in being an artist.
It's the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Phoenix Film Revival Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Yannicone, and I have my co-host, Stacy.
Hello. That's me.
She's here with me recording, of course. Usually don't call her my co-host.
No, you don't. Yeah, you usually say my wife. But I'm
wife?
I'm both. I'm both. I'm co-host and wife.
She does it all. We also
Part of it. I do part of it.
We also have Andrew. Andrew, I always mess up your last name.
Pielage.
Pielage. Oh
Yes.
man, I was definitely messing it up.
Not a problem. Pielage, Pielage. I hear
I can imagine.
Pielage, yeah.
What's the background of that?
It
name?
is-
I couldn't even guess.
Yeah, it's French and German.
French and German. Okay.
So,
okay.
yeah,
That makes sense.
maybe it's Pielage.
Pielage.
Sounds fancier than Pielage.
Pielage.
So,
Mine's a cone, so it's simple. Eye on a cone.
yeah.
Yeah, once you explain that to people, like, oh, okay, it's actually not that bad. But when you look at it written, you're like, whoa, that's a lot of letters. There's a lot of vowels in that name.
Yeah.
That's when I first saw it. I'm like, oh man, it's gonna take. It took me a while to like learn how to spell my own last name. I'm like,
Would you like to buy a vowel?
yeah, really.
Yeah, I have a really weird way of explaining how you should pronounce it with people. But I say, if you get a sunburn really bad, you get peelage
There you
off
go.
of your skin.
That makes
There we
sense.
go.
Yeah.
That works.
Easy to remember.
That's actually easy to remember. It's a good one. Yeah, well, we do that like an ice cream cone with an eyeball on top. So it's like eye on top of a
Yeah.
cone. Yeah. That helps a lot because see, now I'm remember.
Yeah, right. Totally. It's still weird every time I say it, but I continue to do it. So.
So, Andrew, I've known you for a little while.
Yeah.
What, 5, 6 years? Going on 7, maybe 7?
Yeah.
2016?
2016.
Something like that. And Andrew, actually, you had a gallery on Roosevelt, which is kind of where I met you first, or connected with you first.
Here in Phoenix,
Yes.
for those not in Phoenix listening.
Yeah, downtown Phoenix.
Downtown
Yep.
Phoenix.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And actually know you through a friend at Imagecraft as well, Brian, who introduced me to the gallery that you owned. And it was called the Drive-Through Gallery.
Yep. Drive-through gallery. Yeah, right on Roosevelt Street.
It was a kitchenette, right?
Yeah, I was going to mention that. Yeah, you beat me to it. Yeah, old ASU gallery student, ASU photography student gallery called the Kitchenette.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And yeah, because there was an actual kitchenette in the space along with the gallery, which was cool. So they ended up calling the gallery that because of that feature inside. So
Such a strange thing.
yeah, they did some crazy shows in there too. If you're ever bored, you can Google it. But they did some interesting stuff in there before I moved in and did the drive-through.
I never got to see the space, unfortunately. Like I've been here 7 years, but I missed that. But was it an actual drive-through?
Yeah, so it was, from what I believe, it was like a shop or garage behind a historic home.
Oh.
And so it was literally something you could drive through. And so the name seemed perfect.
Yeah.
And there's big garage doors on both sides that just came up. And it was just one big open space. And then next door to that was the kitchenette is the ASU gallery. So that was like a little super tiny studio, which I ended up living in while I did the drive-through gallery for a couple of years. So
That's right.
Yeah.
You were living there.
Fun.
yeah. Crazy times.
Yeah. I had the joy of actually having one of my first pieces on display there. I got to participate in a little show, and I remember it was a bunch of different things I was doing. I think it was paper negatives. I was presenting them in frames with the negative, 4x5 negative, and the positive together. And then I also had a piece which was some Polaroids that I had pushed the chemicals through, and it created this interesting color. And long story short, I ended up I sold that piece for that show and that group show.
Yeah.
And used the money from that to then do another show. I did a solo show with you guys.
Up close.
Yep.
Yep.
Up close. Up close, a personal evening with the film community, I think is what it was.
Yep.
And was an interesting project. I put together this crazy exhibit where you look through in larger lenses and you could see the image behind it of various photographers in the community. I think I highlighted 8 photographers. So, that was kind of the spearhead to what got Phoenix Film Revival started, actually.
Wow, nice.
So after that show, I had connected with a bunch of different photographers that shot film in the community, and got everybody behind me, and we're all asking, where's there a community darkroom? We need a community darkroom.
Yeah. Yep.
And I remember we actually had a meeting at the drive-through gallery one evening in the dark because there was no lights. So we were outside. About right. Yep. I couldn't figure out how to set up lights out there. So we were sitting out there in the dark. I remember one day, and met with a bunch of people. I want to say there was probably like 15 people or so hanging out. And we're like, how do we do this? How do we start? And I'm like shy and not sure what to say, and guess I was kind of in charge of it, and we eventually worked together and got GoFundMe, and then started getting funds in, got a space, and fast forward 5 years later, we're here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I remember having, multiple conversations between you and I, just, me kind of opening that gallery and learning as I was going too. And, you were trying to do your thing. And I think it's really cool that a darkroom group started in the dark. Yeah. That's just perfect. Yeah. Could only be better with a red light or something out there.
Yeah.
But such a valuable thing for the community. I mean, I think I was trying to push you to do that as well.
Yep.
And you were well on your way. It was awesome to go through that process a little bit with you and see where you are now.
Yeah.
I mean, geez, it's amazing. It's very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely fun. I really thank you for your gallery space and allowing me to get my start there, but, and get the lab going. So, big kudos to you. Obviously, we wanted you on the show today.
Nice.
Chat with you about your photography and your direction with Frank Lloyd Wright and your involvement there. So yeah.
So I have a question here. Am I the first one to not be a film photographer on the podcast?
Congratulations. You are.
And is that a congratulations or
no? We were talking about that and we're like, well, you know what? Our main vein of like what we talk about is photographers. It's not necessarily the film part of it.
Okay.
Like the film is like the thing that holds it all together because we're Phoenix Film Revival, so that makes sense. But it's the photographers that we're getting to know because we don't talk about the gear necessarily, and we do talk a little process, but the main thing that we're talking about with people is, and I keep saying it, portraits of photographers. That's really what the podcast is.
Nice.
So, but your place in what you're doing with photography is important because you're bringing community together, and you're bringing not only, you're bringing all kinds of photographers together. So that still completely fits into that.
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah, we're not discounting anybody that's like, shame.
So what film do you shoot?
What film do you shoot, Andrew?
I actually do have a film camera story, and it's actually how I got my start in photography.
We'll see that right there. There we go.
Let's jump into that.
Perfect. So my first camera was a film camera that my mom actually got for me. So I was really born in the outdoors. My dad was a geologist, so we were out camping and hiking almost every weekend. Like before I could even walk, we were out there. And so my mom would buy me those Walgreens disposable cameras, which do they still make those?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So make them.
Okay.
They're not cheap.
No. Yeah.
Disposables have gone up.
Okay. They were probably $3.99 or something at that point. But yeah, so those were my first cameras. So I would go, she would buy me one for every camping trip. And I would go out and, shoot clouds or weird stuff in the bushes. And then we would come back and give them the Walgreens. They would develop them, and then I put them into like photo albums. So I have a stack of maybe 6 or 7 old school, binder photo albums that I still have from all those trips.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
He checks out.
Yep.
Okay, good.
You're qualified. Boom.
Yeah. I totally just made up that story. So you let me stay.
No, everybody has their start in photography, and we love film, obviously, but community is important, and having that as a core to what we do is important. But yeah, we're excited for your gallery, which you actually have a show coming up here. You have a little backstory on that. So you had unfortunately had to shut down the drive-through gallery, which was a fun place not only to see work, but also to hang out.
Yeah.
Is this COVID related?
No.
This is
pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID.
Pre-COVID. Okay.
Yeah.
So you shut down the gallery, unfortunately. But you actually have a new gallery that you're opening here in September 22nd, I think.
22nd.
So,
yeah.
Exciting.
You have a show coming up.
Yeah. And it's kind of continuing that tradition the culture that you helped and me create that culture at the drive-through gallery, where it's definitely a space to highlight photographers, and it's always just been photographers in the drive-through, and that will continue in what I'm calling the Brill Gallery. And it's in Garfield, in the Garfield Historical District, so just outside of downtown.
So not too far away from.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, just a little out of the madness of downtown on 10th Street there. So, but yeah, it will be a place to highlight the wonderful photographers that we have in Arizona, which I think are underrepresented. And they were even more back when we were at the drive-through gallery. So,
absolutely.
That's some of the motivation. I know that was some of the motivation for you doing your film thing too. But it's also, I want it to be a place, a community place as well. I don't want people to come in, look at the images, and then walk back out, So, we've kind of created this, kind of safe place for photographers to come show their work. I'm really excited about this first show on the 22nd, and it's actually a continuation of drive-through as well. So it will be a monsoon group show.
Awesome.
Nice.
So it's a juried show. We had over 50 images to choose from. We narrowed that down to 18, giving really one image per artist.
Awesome.
And one of the cool things that I'm kind of proud about is we have 9 photographers that have never shown before.
Awesome.
Oh,
That's
awesome.
so great.
Yeah. And so I'm really, I'm excited for all the artists to be there, but it's always fun to get those first timers in there and see the nervousness on their faces, just like I still am when I show too,
Oh yeah. It feels good to show your work, and a lot of people who haven't, not only social media you post on every day,
Yeah.
and it's easy to just take an image that you have, especially with a digital camera, and boom, onto Instagram. But to take your photography to the next level and get it framed up and then, presentation worthy, and put it up on a wall and have other people look at it is a huge step for a lot of people. So I'm excited for all of them.
Yeah. And that can be a scary process. I mean, if you've never printed out an image before, you've never had it matte and framed, you're talking ratios and dimensions, and, you start to get into that, what is my style now? Do I want to frame this? Do I want it on metal, canvas? What do I want to do? So I think it's a very exciting time, obviously scary as well, but exciting as a photographer when I was doing it.
Oh, yeah.
It still is, in shows today. So, but yeah, really looking forward to that show on September 22nd.
Oh yeah.
How long will that be up? Is that just a one night thing, 1 month thing?
No, it will be open until December 15th.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
And then how often is the gallery open?
So right now it will be open every 3rd Friday.
Okay.
So it opens September 22nd is actually the 4th Friday. That's a little misscheduling on our part. I'll take full blame for that. But then after that, it will be every 3rd Friday.
Yeah.
And then by appointment as well. So it's also my studio. So I'm in there working, on a daily basis out of there as well.
Awesome.
All right, cool. Very cool.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's back.
It is back. Oh, man.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of it. It's weird. Phoenix is like, we're a major city and the art scene is just so lackluster, for the lack of a better word, and especially for photography. And it's good to see like that, being shown, and like people having an opportunity to show as well, and then meet the community and other photographers too.
Yeah.
Just get those connections in real life, because it's hard. There's not a lot of times you get to like meet people in person as well.
Yeah.
Just in the world that we live in. So
yeah, absolutely. And, I think when the drive-thru opened, that was, 2012, there was great photographers around here, but they had to leave Phoenix to be successful. So they were going out to the East Coast and the West Coast. And now I feel like that culture has changed, and those good, talented photographers are staying in Phoenix, which is very exciting. And, why we're doing our thing as well at the galleries. So,
yeah, that's exciting. That's right around the corner.
Yeah.
do you live in the studio too? Is this a live-in situation as well?
I'm married to a beautiful woman named Lori, and it was an addition on our house. So we have a 1918 California Craftsman in Garfield that had an addition, and it was, not really done well. So we kind of gutted it and created this gallery / studio space with the intention of opening this up.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. So you are a photographer. I don't know anything about your photography, which I love. I love that I don't know a lot about you. Like I've heard, like Dan's mentioned your name like many times. So I've but I never had like, I didn't even know what you look like. I'm like, okay.
Sorry to disappoint you on that front.
No, but so I knew you by name and I'm vaguely who you were. But your work, what is that? And how long have you been shooting? What do you shoot? All of that.
Yeah. So, going back to the upbringing of my parents, my roots are really in landscape photography. So going out and camping, hunting for rocks with my dad, I always had that disposable camera. And then as I kind of grew up, so do my cameras grew up a little bit as well. I think I went to the G7 from Canon after that. And then turned 16, could drive now. And now I'm going out to national parks and doing backpacking and hiking, which I still do to this day. And it was landscape at that point. And I still enjoy that. That's really therapy time for me, is not just photography, but getting out and in the outdoors and appreciating that. And then 2011, I got introduced to Frank Lloyd Wright up at Taliesin West here in Phoenix. And that really changed my career path, going from landscape to now architectural photography. And, I don't know how much you know about Frank Lloyd Wright, but he's known for that blending of the two. So he's using a lot of natural materials, local colors, local textures. And so going up there for the first time, and seeing Taliesin West, it was shooting architecture, but from a landscape point of view, because there's that blending is done so well. I never felt like I had to change my technique or change what I was doing shooting landscape to shooting Frank Lloyd Wright architecture. And so it was kind of this really smooth transition. And now I primarily shoot architectural photography now. So I do a little bit of traveling, but I am on a mission to photograph all of Frank Lloyd Wright sites around the world.
How many are there?
Yeah. So before I tell you how many, I do want you to know it's just as much about the journey as it is the destination. So he designed over 1,000. 532 were built around the world, and now there's 430 remaining.
Oh, wow.
And I just shot 2 in Wisconsin 2 weeks ago, and now I'm up to 130.
Nice.
So that's almost there.
Far. Do you have a timeline on this, or
before I die?
Before you die. Oh, there you go.
Someday.
That's very reasonable. That's incredibly reasonable.
Yeah.
So do the Frank Lloyd Wright people, are they aware of what you're doing?
Absolutely.
The project? Okay.
Yeah. So the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation owns Taliesin West here, which is Frank Lloyd Wright's home. It was his home and studio. and they own Taliesin in Wisconsin. So Frank Lloyd Wright and his students, he had an architectural school, were basically snowbirds.
Yeah.
So they own both of those, and they have been a huge support for me. Just giving me the opportunity to shoot up there when that wasn't really allowed. And that was really my in to the Frank Lloyd Wright world. And, to this day, they, promote my stuff online. They help me get these connections to get into these Frank Lloyd Wright sites. The majority of his portfolio, Frank Lloyd Wright's portfolio, is private homes.
Oh.
And so you can't just...
Okay. Yeah, you can't just show up with the tour. And,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that are shooting Frank Lloyd Wright, but they're doing it from the fence, holding a camera over, getting into properties illegally. So this is with permission. Interior and exterior have to be photographed to be part of the project.
Okay.
And this has not been done. There was a Japanese photographer back in the 70s that claims that he's done it, and maybe he did. But I have done a lot of research and I can't find his entire portfolio of those.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this has never been done before. Even if it has, these Wright places have changed.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so keep on keeping on.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do too. I can't imagine if there is anyone that's done it. It can't be a very large number.
Yeah, right.
People that have done it.
Yeah.
And you've have already, how many did you say you already got to?
130.
Yeah, so that's like a ton right there.
Yeah.
What's the end game once you have all of that? Are you doing a book, do you think? Is that kind of where you're going with it? Or like, what's your plan once you're done? Like once you're done, you're like, okay, I did it. Is that it?
In the cane, in the rocking chair.
You're just like, I did it. I did it.
Or
is there happy?
Or is there something that you're actively working toward beyond just taking the photos and getting them out?
Yeah. I think there's a couple layers to that, but I would like to do a book, and I really don't want to wait until I'm done with it in 10, 15, 20 years from now. So, I've been throwing around this idea of, separating these. And so maybe the first book would be the first 100, and then it's the second 100. We're trying to figure out a way to split those up.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And of course, these are, for documentary purposes as well. So, I'm going back to Pedro Guerrero was Frank Lloyd Wright's personal photographer from Casa Grande here. And he did amazing work up at Taliesin West. Seeing it for the first time. Now it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site and it's been shot 1 billion times.
Yeah.
But what a cool thing to be the first person to photograph that kind of high-end architecture. But, we go back and look at his to study Frank Lloyd Wright and what furniture was there and his different design elements. We're going through his photographs to see some of that stuff. And, I hope these will be saved in a way that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, people can go back to this project and do the same thing and see what these buildings and designs and owners of these buildings were in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're taking like full comprehensive portfolio of the photos. It's not just like, oh, here's the building. You're going through everything and shooting. Like how many photos would you say are you actually shooting like while you're on site, like at these places?
A bunch.
Yeah. 7 or 8.
Yeah. 100. I bracket my images.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
I'm
You're
getting
going through a lot.
Yeah. 5 or 10 shots, one f-stop apart kind of deal.
You're
but
there. You don't want to miss it. Right.
Right. Exactly.
Get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was an important aspect of the project, was to do this properly. Like I mentioned, there's people that have done it. They sneak onto the property, take these photos, and then they check it off their list. That's, that's just not cool to do.
Right.
These are private properties. So this is established, set beforehand. It's usually about 4 or 5 hours in the morning, pre-sunrise into sunrise light, and then sunset, and then usually into the evening. Wright's such a prolific designer. He one of his favorite quotes is that I really enjoy, and you probably will as a photographer. It's more and more, it seems to me that light is the beautifier of the building.
Yes.
I really love that. And, I
Makes
take
sense,
that. I take that to heart. And so that's what I'm photographing when I'm out at these places is actually the light, not necessarily the architecture.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you have any of spots where you're going to have a really hard time getting to? Because you have this checklist, and I'm assuming there's a few on that list that are probably going to be troubles.
Yeah. The ones that I thought were going to be trouble, I got in very early. For whatever reason, they were open arms to let me in. And that was Falling Water in Pennsylvania, probably one of the most iconic homes in the world.
Yeah.
And they asked me to be an artist in residence there for 30 days. So I split that into basically two-week sessions and got an all access pass to that place to photograph and study it and study the light. And that was very early on in the project. And so that was one that I was not thinking that was going to happen that quickly.
Yeah.
And the Guggenheim Museum in New York was the same way. So I just reached out.
Nice.
They said, hey, why don't you come by? We'll set you up with staff before it opens and you can photograph it. But like I mentioned, the majority of his portfolio is private homes. And that's where it's going to get difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. If these are owned by people, like they maybe don't want someone in their house.
Or we don't know who's in the house.
Yeah.
And so that would be a cold call or knock on the door like, hey.
I'm here to take pictures of your house.
Yeah. Surprise.
I'm totally not a creep.
Yeah, right. And I'm sure they get that request all the time.
Yeah.
So.
Interesting. Does all of his work, does it all stay in the same vein, or does he have some stuff out there? So I'm not like, I know the big stuff, but like, does he have some stuff that's just like, you would look at it and you have no idea that he had anything to do with it? Like some real, like, did he go off and, he had like, what's the span of time that all of this goes through?
Oh, he designed for 60 or 70 years.
Okay. So there's some probably differing designs, I'm assuming, in there.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, he started kind of the prairie style of homes. So these low flat roofs, big overhangs that were designed to mimic the prairies of the Midwest is where he's from. He was born in Richland Center, Wisconsin. And so that was a huge phase for him. And then he also got into textile block homes. So he didn't actually design the Biltmore. A lot of people think he did, but that textile block is his design. And so he did a series of textile block homes in California. And there's one in New Hampshire as well. But really like funky, completely different concrete blocks, basically. And he created wood forms and the owners would do it themselves. So completely different. And then, we have the Guggenheim, which is a big spiral. We have the David and Gladys Wright house here in Phoenix, which is spiral as well. So he was challenging architecture all the time. I mean, he said he didn't believe in business codes because it hindered his creativity. So
Yeah.
Well, they're all still standing, so that says something.
Yeah.
It's a little different than building the submarine.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a few things on the Guggenheim. I remember being there and they've talked about all like the colors that it was supposed to be at one point were different. And I always found that really kind of fascinating. The building's amazing. Like anyone walks in there, you're like, what is this?
Yeah, right.
It's such an amazing space. Yeah, I mean, most of his stuff, it's just like, it's so nice to see that. I wish we had more of that nowadays.
Yeah, right.
Especially in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Phoenix is like, let's make everything really square and beige.
Yeah, right. But when you walk into that space, you feel something, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow it affects you on an emotional, physical level. And, I've photographed, like I said, 130, and I've probably felt that in 90% of his designs.
Yeah.
Whether that's public space or private space. So then it goes down to, how do you capture that in a photograph, that feeling that you have? And, that's something that I am continually trying to figure out and get better at as I photograph these homes.
Yeah, I can
Makes
imagine.
sense.
That's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
I always think I'm in a shell. I always think of the beach when I walk in there. I feel very beachy. The sound and with like the shape, I feel like I'm in a giant conch.
That was actually his inspiration.
It looks like
Was a
it.
seashell.
It totally feels like that when I walk in there. I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in a big shell on the beach.
Yeah. Good call. Yeah.
And the sound, like every time I walked in that building, I always thought, I'm like, so beachy in here. Like, the white, like it just has a
Yeah.
very clean look to it too. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
that's an amazing space there. Have you talked to any of the relatives of his? I know there's some Phoenix locals that his, what is that? Right in the Garden.
Yeah.
They have the I'm going to get it wrong. The great-great-granddaughter and the great-great-great-grandson,
Wow.
I believe.
How do you know them?
No, I went.
Okay.
I like plants.
And
When it's been a while since I've been there, but when I first moved here, I was like looking for plant stores, and I went in there, and then I heard the name, and the name kind of like, I was like, Wright. I'm like, well, he's right. I'm like, and I looked him up after I went to the plant store because the name just like, I just wanted to see who they were. And then I realized who they were. I'm like, oh, that was his guy. Like, I had no idea, like, until after I went there. I was like, oh, okay. He still has relatives here. I didn't know.
Yeah.
And he's not buried here. Didn't he get moved? Like, someone moved him, didn't they? Like, where he was buried, but he's not buried. His ashes are on Taliesin. Is that right?
So his gravesite is at Taliesin.
Okay.
And yes, he was moved to Taliesin West, dug up, cremated, and then moved out to Taliesin West.
That's what I thought I had heard.
Yeah.
Why was that against his wishes? I remember hearing vaguely about that and thinking, oh, that's weird. It's always weird when you hear about someone being exhumed and then moved.
Absolutely.
Like there's got to be a story. And I didn't get down in the hole about that, but I'm assuming there's some sort of story there.
Yeah. So his wife at the time liked Taliesin West and the West weather and culture out here more. And so she ended up not splitting time like she was when Frank Lloyd Wright was around. Mm-hmm. So she ended up spending a lot of time at Taliesin West and wanted Frank to be there, Mr. Wright to be there with her at Taliesin West.
Oh, interesting. She's like, you're coming with me.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But funny story about the Wright in the Garden. That's Sarah Levy. She used to work for ArtLink.
Oh, okay.
And
cool.
I was showing at Art Detour one year, way back when.
Oh, yeah.
This is probably 2012 or 2013. It was a Frank Lloyd Wright exhibit because I was just getting into it. And she walked into the gallery and was like, hey, that's the house my family used to live in. And so it was a very cool connection. We met and now we're, good friends ever since. So,
oh, very cool.
Yeah. We, my wife and I got married at their house that they used to live in, the David and Gladys Wright house here in Phoenix.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
Really fun. You got like a good connection in there then. You got like that. You're right in there.
Yeah. Been doing this for a while. So
when did you start? What was the?
So it was 2011.
11. Okay. Yeah. You've been going on it a while then.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was kind of interesting moment how I got started with them with photography. So I'll just tell you real quickly. So I went up there to take a tour, couldn't photograph at the time, and came back, was talking to a friend of mine, Christina, and she worked at a doctor's office where this gentleman named Dr. Rourke, who was Frank Lloyd Wright's personal physician, used to come in. And she's like, well, let me talk with him. Maybe we can get you in there. Long story short, they got me one sunset shoot up at Taliesin West, and that doesn't ever happen. So I was like, okay, so I get up there, I'm walking around. I don't know what the heck I'm doing at this point. I'm still a super rookie, and this beautiful sunset comes up and I was like, okay, well, I'll just utilize that with the colors of the building. Took a shot and they ended up liking the photographs. And my contact up there was like, do you ever teach photography? And I was like, yeah, of course. I had never taught photography at all. But I knew that was my chance to get in. I was blown away by this one shoot I did and I was hooked immediately. Like I got the feelings you got at the Guggenheim when I was up there. Yeah. And they said, okay, well, our photography instructor just left. And why don't you start teaching kids up here in the summer? And if it works out, we'll see where it goes. And so to this day, I teach photography workshop for kids up at Taliesin West every summer.
That's awesome.
So
that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, how great is that? So the kids just bring in their little cameras and then you teach them all just how to work the camera and how to shoot and the whole kit and caboodle?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's beginner. And it's the big one, shutter speed, aperture, ISO. They come in with a digital camera. And I teach the same beginner lesson at kids as I do my adult workshops. And I won't tell you who picks it up way faster, kids or adults. But it's very cool to see them experience photography and learn it like that. But what's really special for me is when these kids come, they don't know anything about it. Some of them want to be there. A lot of times it's their parents that want them to be there, kind of deal. But they go and photograph. They don't really know what they're doing. And I'm looking around at their photographs, and it's like perfect composition, like just one of the most amazing photographs you've ever seen. And I go up to them, hey, why'd you photograph this, or what'd you think? And they're like, I don't know. I just thought it was cool.
It felt right.
Yeah. And it's like one of the most amazing photographs. And I've been shooting up there for 10 years, and hadn't ever seen this composition. So those are cool.
Oh, yeah.
So then I just have a conversation with the parents, like, you need to keep this kid in the arts because they have a talent of composition, which is, not always easy to learn.
Yeah.
If you don't have it. So, but yeah, it's fun. It's a fun place. Yeah.
It's exciting.
Yeah.
We get a lot of people wanting to take workshops, and we're not really kid based.
Yeah. We're always like, sorry, like, because we just have like so many chemicals with like skulls and crossbones on them in our I'm like, we're one like sip away from killing somebody in there.
We'll send them your way.
Yeah, there you go.
Yep.
We'll start in digital, and then I'll pass them back off to you guys.
Get a little older, play with chems.
Like, it's slightly dangerous in there for us adults.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
that's exciting. Yeah. So how long have you been doing the workshops then? I guess since you started doing that.
2011, 2012. And it started with the kids, and now it's at a couple different Frank Lloyd Wright sites around the country. So I teach at Falling Water. I teach at Taliesin West. I have one coming up in the winter. I teach at Taliesin. I also teach in Mason City, Iowa, is Frank Lloyd Wright's only hotel that he designed that you can still stay at. So we just did a workshop there this summer. I teach at Modernism Week at Palm Springs as well. But they're usually based at Frank Lloyd Wright places.
Okay.
And a lot of times they get to stay on property, which is very cool too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So it's this whole experience, not just photography. They're really kind of diving into the culture of Frank Lloyd Wright while we're there.
That's very cool. So this is all sponsored by the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation?
So I am an independent contractor
for them. Okay. What did they do? What is that group exactly?
Yeah. So Wright in his will wanted to create this foundation. So now they take care of Taliesin West, of Taliesin, and all of his property that he left. So all of his archives and things like that. And they've transferred that now to Columbia out in New York to take care of it. But all of his, proprietary licensing and all of that stuff stays with the foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And they're based out of Taliesin West.
Like the caretakers of that. Well, it was good that he put that in place. He knew that it was valuable to do that.
Yep.
Because that stuff can easily get go away really, really quickly without that in place.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like his wife probably had a little to do with that too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, she was dedicated to moving him.
Right.
She took it very seriously. I like that.
Is there a top property that you want to shoot that you can think of that you haven't yet? Or maybe one that you have?
Excited about,
I guess. The best one?
Oh, man. It's such a tough question. It's like, I don't have kids, but I'd imagine it'd be like picking your favorite kid. We have 2 cats, so maybe I got to pick my favorite cat, kind of deal.
Yeah.
I would like to get over to Japan. He has a few in Japan, and he was heavily influenced by the Asian culture and actually purchased a lot of Asian art and brought it over to the United States. And so it's implemented into a lot of his designs, and just that idea of being one with nature and open spaces, that's all, Asian influence. So he had a Imperial Hotel over there that survived an earthquake, a very serious earthquake, one of the only buildings that survived. And
building codes be damned.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we'll show them.
Yeah.
But they have since, unfortunately, it's been demolished. It was demolished, I don't know, maybe in the 80s or 90s. But he does still have a girls' school out there, which just looks phenomenal from photos. And just to see his architecture in a place that heavily inspired him and influenced him, I think would be really special to photograph. So I'd say that's
a good one.
That's
Yeah,
the
that
one on my
sounds nice.
list. Yeah.
I'd say we got to go to more. Like, I mean, I've seen in books, but I feel like I haven't really been to a lot of the properties. I really want to go to Falling Water, which is kind of ridiculous because I lived in central Pennsylvania. I was born there. So I was like probably 2 hours away from Falling Water my entire life. But I was telling Dan, I said, we got to get out there because we're going to go back next summer. My aunt and uncle, they spent half the year in Pennsylvania.
Oh, nice.
They have cabins and we're going to go there next summer. And I said, we're going to fly into like Pittsburgh and we'll drive through.
Yeah.
Like, 'cause
Yeah, definitely want to see it.
we definitely have to stop by. I've been meaning to do that. There's a few stops there that I've been. It's like, you know, it's kind of like when you live here in Arizona and people are like, you know, I've never been to the Grand Canyon. Like Dan's one of those.
I've never been to the
He's
Grand
never
Canyon.
been to the Grand Canyon. Yeah.
I've been everywhere else in the state,
Yeah.
top and bottom, but I haven't been to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it's similar to that. Like where you just
totally.
miss some of the stuff in your
I saw it
in
from
your
the plane.
state.
It's fine.
I know. And I moved away when I was in my 20s, to be fair. I've been gone like half of my life, you know. So
Yeah.
I couldn't see all of it as a kid. I didn't have a car for most of that.
Yeah.
But I'd love to go out there. Just seeing the pictures and stuff. And that's got to be in like just knowing Pennsylvania and what Pennsylvania looks like.
Yeah.
It's got to be a beautiful location out
Yeah.
there.
And who designs a home right over a waterfall?
seriously.
I mean, who does that?
You know what? There's actually
It's
a
crazy.
weird amount of homes that have like streams running through them in Pennsylvania. There's a lot of them, which is
we found one online.
Yeah, we were looking beside my grandmother's house. There's I was looking at a property that was like kind of beautiful. It used to be an old mill, and if you go down in their basement, the creek. I was about to say crick. That's the Pennsylvania coming out. The creek that runs through the house.
Wow, cool.
Like inside of it. I knew a few people like that. There's a lot of streams and cricks and creeks
Yeah.
that are there. But yeah, a weird amount of like water running through people's homes and properties out there, which is kind of odd, especially in Arizona. You don't think about that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Water?
his is like a spectacular.
Yeah.
That's like a full on waterfall. That's a little different, but
Yeah. Do they call them runs out there? Because that creek is called Bear Run.
Yes.
Which I had never heard a
Yes.
creek being called a run before.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of Central PA has some run roads. There's some run roads, and that usually corresponds with the crick or creek that is going through. Most people say, I broke myself of crick. I used to say crick.
Oh yeah, everybody was saying crick. I was like, what is that? Talking about crickets?
Oh yeah, because Dan went out to Pennsylvania for the first time, and like I didn't notice it. And like, you know, you grow up somewhere, there's a bit of an accent out there.
Yeah.
Like with especially Pittsburgh, the Yinzers, they got like there's a bit of a there's a little something in there.
Yeah.
So some of the words you're like, what? What you saying? Yeah, there's some beautiful property out there though. For
Yeah.
sure. Like it's older, obviously.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more property out there that's beautiful. That's kind of in the middle of nowhere out there though, right? Like that's
Yeah.
not really near anything as far as because it's southeast of Pittsburgh, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting he picked that. He's just like, oh, we're in the middle of the woods. This is a great waterfall. Let's do it.
Yeah. It was the client that picked it, Kaufman.
Nice.
So Kaufman department stores in Pittsburgh.
Oh, Kaufman's. I remember Kaufman's.
Yeah. That's the
Good.
client. Yep.
Oh, they were big. They were really big in Pennsylvania. I remember going to their stores. They were a big deal. They went away.
Yeah. They had
They've been gone for a while.
yeah. Aren't they like Macy's now or Dillard's?
Yeah, the properties got bailed out. So if you go to any of the malls where they have an anchor where it's like a Macy's or JCPenney, at one point it was probably a Kaufman's.
Okay.
There's a lot of that. And they
Gotcha.
had freestanding ones too. I remember Lewistown, which used to be a very popular, very busy town in Pennsylvania. They had a huge Kaufman's, as I recall. It was like a multi-story, like it's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like Kaufman's went out. I'm going to say late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
They've been gone a long time.
Yeah. I mean, Falling Water, that was like 37, 38, something like that. 1937.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was a while ago.
That's interesting. So it was the department store, the person who owned the department store?
Yep. Mr.
Okay.
Kaufman.
Mr. Kaufman himself.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And he had a resort out there for employees first.
Oh.
So he would treat his employees and they could just go out there by train at that point and get dropped off at the station. And there's a stop right next to it. And so they loved that land and owned it and was like, you know, they hired Frank Lloyd Wright to commission the house. And it's kind of a funny story. They obviously talked about the waterfall, and the Kaufmans were huge outdoor people, so they were always in the water as well. There's tons of pictures of the whole family in there. But Kaufman thought it was going to be built in a different location, where just down the crook a little bit, at what they called a view now, to look back at that waterfall. But Wright felt that if you were looking at it all the time, you would take it for granted. You'd see it all the time. So he wanted to do it right on top of it, so you couldn't ever forget it was there. You'd always hear it. You'd always feel it in the house as well. So I thought it was a interesting take on that. Just another way he's connecting his clients through architecture to the landscape.
Absolutely.
Amazing blending out there.
Yeah.
I bet wintertime's amazing out there.
Yeah.
It probably freezes up.
Yeah.
I assume. And
There's no way I'm going. We're desert rats. There's no way I'm going out there.
I heard that according to my family, winter has gotten a lot more mild in that neck of the woods. So it's not so bad. I think my brother said they haven't had snow in the last couple of years.
Gotcha.
They've had some dustings, but yeah, there's some years there. It gets pretty cold. Not as bad as Wisconsin. The
Right.
Wisconsin sites, they may be a little bit more aggressive, I think, than the Pennsylvania one. I can't even imagine like the building, how that even worked then back there, and to like build that on like the water, like on a cliff, like because what year was that they built that?
Mid-30s, like 37.
It's just like in the middle of the woods on a cliff.
With like huge cantilevers too. I mean, it had never been done before.
That's just craziness. Just
it's one thing to design it, but then also the engineering that goes behind these buildings, and being able to know that this is structurally sound and that it won't crumble. It's kind of crazy to think, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot. It makes me feel stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, man, if I had to someone's like, here, you build a structure. Okay.
Here's some popsicle sticks, make a bridge. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's some advanced stuff. Is there a lot of photography that was done at the time of the building of a lot of these things? So there's a lot of records of like things where someone actually keeping track.
It varies. Yeah. So, like I mentioned, Pedro Guerrero, he was very influential and used a 4x5. I guess that sounds familiar to your film, bringing film back into this.
That absolutely sounds familiar.
So that's what he was using. And actually Frank Lloyd Wright was a photographer as well. So he did some landscape. He actually did like a very moody, selfie of himself, just sitting in this garden in Oak Park, which is just outside of Chicago. But he did some fashion shots too. He used to design dresses and clothing, and his wife would wear them, and he would take pictures of her in the clothing. So, which was very cool. He was
Renaissance man, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But it varies. I mean, Falling Water is well documented just because it was such a crazy design for that time. So there was local news coming out there, and he was pretty big at that point. And Falling Water really boosted his career. It was on the front of Time magazine with his face on there. But there was a Stoller. I mean, Stoller came through Taliesin West and did some photography for Frank Lloyd Wright. Ezra, I love Ezra Stoller's stuff. Schulman did a couple shoots for Frank Lloyd Wright as well. I think those were the two big ones at the time. So. But with such an extensive portfolio, there's some don't really have any, especially these private homes that the owners were building. They weren't taking photos of them.
Yeah. Do you think there's any out there that you don't know about?
I would like to think so, just because that's cool,
Surprise ones.
He does have this series of what we call bootleg homes. So he was actually an apprentice for Louis Sullivan in Chicago, and was kind of moonlighting a little bit on that because he wasn't doing the full designs. He was just kind of supporting Sullivan. And so he has this bootleg series of homes in Oak Park, and some have been identified that it's actually his work because he was taking clients and building homes and Sullivan didn't know about it. And so who knows? There could definitely be some of those bootleg homes out there. And there's definitely some false Frank Lloyd Wright homes out there too, where people swear it's Frank Lloyd Wright because it looks like him, but it's just not.
Yeah, I can imagine that's much more common too, because they're like, "Hey, look at that guy!" Like it means it, much more valuable.
Once you shoot all the official ones, you can go shoot all the bootlegs.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the bootleg version.
Yeah, add another 30 to the project. No big deal.
Well, that'll keep you busy for a very long time.
Yeah.
So kind of a passive project, or you're actively like most of the time kind of thinking about it and working on it?
Definitely active.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wish that I was independently wealthy where I could just fly out and, shoot all these places. But that's just not how it is as an artist sometimes.
No.
So I like to combine trips. So I was just out in Wisconsin teaching a workshop. 2 of them, and I stay in between the 2 weekend workshops, and I go out and photograph other Frank Lloyd Wright sites in the area. So whenever I fly out to a city, I'm trying to set up multiple shoots, just to try to knock them off, as quickly as I can. But it was, when I came up with this idea, which was kind of an accident, it was a little daunting at first because, who's doing a project that's going to take 20 years to complete and you got 430 subjects to shoot around the world. But it was also very cool because very early on in my photography career, it gave me a path forward. Like, I think a lot of photographers, and I was doing it up until that point, was like, okay, do I want to shoot landscape? Is that really feasible to, financially to do that? Do I want to shoot film, digital, people, wiener dogs, fashion, what do I want to do? And, in the beginning, I was photographing everything, trying to figure that out. And really that Frank Lloyd Wright project really was defining my path and still is to this day. And that, that was 12 years ago now. So it was daunting, but also kind of refreshing to immediately focus all of my learning in photography into really one area.
Yeah, that's really nice to find a path. I think a lot of people struggle with that, where you're like,
yeah,
I like photography, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
It's hard to kind of find a place. Yeah.
Yeah. And try to, balance what you like to photograph, but also where the need is, or, trying to feed yourself mac and cheese or rice every day, kind of deal too. So,
yeah, definitely good to have a direction to move in. It's one of the big challenging things.
Yeah.
But I had a question for you.
Yeah.
Which is more of a technical one, I realized. So you mentioned 4x5, and that's how they shot a lot of this architectural stuff. There's a reason for the 4x5. That's because you were able to adjust the camera in order to get these angles. So you're using a digital camera, and one of the big reasons that you would shoot architecture with the 4x5 is so you can adjust your focal plane and be able to capture a building in focus at the base and also all the way up at the top. And you're basically adjusting that, I guess, the parallax compensation. So how do you photograph? Do you have a special lens, or do you, take a picture and make sure it's in, like, I guess, in focus and stack images? Or I know that's really technical.
Yeah, no, definitely.
I'm just curious because it's digital photography with architecture is probably, a little challenging.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that depth of field and the focus point is very important, but just as important, or maybe more, is that the lines are straight. True. So no architect wants to see their building with converging lines or falling over, leaning forward, or leaning back. It's just not going to work. You're never going to get hired again.
Right.
So I use a tilt shift lens.
Okay.
So it mimics the same thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So I have a 24 millimeter and a 17 millimeter. Both are Canon.
Okay.
Not really tilting too much. Again, because that depth of field doesn't have to be that broad or that long.
That's true. You're not taking pictures of skyscrapers.
Yeah, his
It's a
stuff's-
little different.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot of his stuff's kind of squat.
Yeah. But I did come up with this kind of cool thing because Frank Lloyd Wright designs everything inside of these homes. So it's not just the building. He's doing matching furniture, built-ins, lights, electrical plugs, everything inside this house. And I was finding, and I started with the 17 millimeter, even with that wide angle, I still couldn't get all of those design elements in one photograph. And I got to thinking, like, you know, everyone's doing these panos left and right. You know, why don't we do a vertical pano? So what I'm doing is setting up the tilt shift, shifting down, bracketing, then shifting up, bracketing and overlaying by, 25%, and then stitching those together in the post process and then squaring it off. So then it's at like a 1x1 format. So you get this square image off of a vertical pano. So now I can get the floor and the ceiling all in one photograph. So if you look through the website, all the square formats on my website are all that technique of stitching a vertical pano together.
Yeah, I figured there had to be some sort of trick there because it's, digital photography does differ when it comes to architecture for sure. But interesting.
Yeah,
Awesome.
It just goes back to that age-old rule of you want to get as close in camera as you can.
Right.
And that's not just exposure, that's distortion, perspective controlling as well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So say that project went away. It's not going to. You're going to be doing that forever.
Please, no.
But if it did, what do you think you'd be shooting or sort of aiming toward? Would you go back to just landscape, do you think? It would just head back that way?
Yeah. I think it would be landscape, and I still enjoy photographing landscape. I think there's a lot of stories to be told in this world, and through this Frank Lloyd Wright project, I won't keep bringing him up. I promise we'll move on. But, there's stories inside of these houses with the owners. And so I think if I wasn't shooting Frank Lloyd Wright or architecture, I think there's still human stories in the landscape environment that would be very interesting for me to do. So, going out to these, remote tribes and, South America and the Amazon forest, I think would be very interesting, or just these obscure kind of villages or little pockets of people that no one really knows about. Like those, that's what I like to read about. And so, I really like adventure, and traveling and trying to get to these places is just as important as, the actual shoot itself. So I think it'd be along those lines.
Yeah. That's cool.
I also think volcanoes are really cool too.
Volcanoes are very cool. That's my preferred. I keep telling Dan, he thinks I'm insane when I'm like about to die. I'm really down with someone putting me in a volcano.
Really?
Feet first. I want to feel it going out.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm like, I'm at the end, just find me a volcano and get me in there.
Yeah.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Nature, take me out feet first. I love it.
Yeah. So I love that question. What about you two? Am I allowed to throw questions back here?
Of course.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, sure.
So not photographing anything that you're doing now.
Well, I'd have to start photographing stuff now.
Yeah, we've been so busy.
We are so busy half the time. So we have our day jobs, and then we run the lab.
Yeah.
And then we've been doing the podcast. And then coming this better weather, we start running our photo booth too.
Which is our chance my chance to shoot.
Yeah.
Stacy does all the hard work. I just take the pictures.
You do the easy part.
Yeah. We do this photo booth, and we do direct instant positives, and I get to shoot 4x5 all day.
Oh, cool.
Which is fun.
Dan's a portrait guy.
So portraits are fun for me. It's a new face, just like a new building that you get to see, or new landscape. It's always a changing face. So for me, portraits I really enjoy. And then Stacy does the hard work, and she does all the developing. So
Yeah. But
cool.
with unlimited time, I would love to shoot. Yeah, no, I like decrepit stuff. So I like weird.
Yeah.
The world of the weird, anything odd and strange or falling down or falling apart. Hopefully I'm actually on vacation this week, so I'm hoping to take some photos. Maybe I haven't taken some. It's summer too. You're in Arizona. It's like the plague of Arizona photographers, where if you shoot outside, especially with film, you kind of forced to shoot outside a lot of the time. So I'm hoping to maybe shoot a little bit.
So is this like Atlas Obscura kind of stuff?
A little bit. Like, I feel like I've checked off every list, like one of those places. I always find like what the weird thing is to go to.
Right. I love it.
We show up to all the weird stuff. I don't know. I like just very strange, kind of odd, old. And Phoenix has a lot of that. And I really want to, my plan is to take some pictures of some of these older signs, because I think a lot of people don't realize that Phoenix has a lot of signs that don't exist other places.
That's cool.
Like a lot of places take those down. And we kind of hang on to our old weird signs that are at buildings. And a lot of our buildings look, like businesses. A lot of the businesses look kind of funky.
Yeah.
So I want to do some stuff like that. And I like alternative processes as well. So I want to do a whole Mortensage
that's cool.
process with
Stacey
a lot of
recently
those.
Went down that route of Mortensage, which is a really fun process where you destroy the print. And it jives really well with that concept.
The subject matter. Yeah. It's just taken a while to get the time to work on the Mortensage to get that worked out and then mix it with the photography. But I'm getting really close to like getting it both kind of merged together. So
Mortensage basically makes it look like the image is melting, kind of.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, it's like if you think of a Polaroid lift, which a lot of people are really familiar with that, it's that with a silver gelatin print.
Okay.
Where you're lifting the actual silver off of the print. But in the same time, you're destroying the print. But there's some ways you can do a controlled burn on that.
Yeah.
But it's a little dangerous. I always tell people, like, if you want to do that, don't do it at home. It will dry clean your lungs.
And what's the name of it? Say it again.
Mortensage.
Mortensage.
A lot of people say Morden Cage, but it's
because
not.
It's spelled Cage, so French. So I forget the translation on that. There is a translation to why that is. It's like
something death and then like something else.
Yeah, something like that. I forget the exact thing, but Morden Cage, if you spelled it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole thing.
I think Stacey's vibe is like goth Pee-wee. That's what I would say. Goth Pee-wee.
Goth Pee-wee. That's actually, God, that's weirdly accurate.
That's got to go in the description of the podcast for this one.
Goth Pee-wee.
That's not too far. Yeah, I think you mentioned that not too long ago. You said our house is starting to look a little bit like Pee Wee Herman's house.
But goth.
But goth, yeah.
But a little goth, yeah.
Man, that's quite a visual.
No.
Yeah.
But time is like such a thing,
Absolutely.
It makes it really, really hard for anybody. But we have our little hands in a lot of pots. But we get a lot of satisfaction of seeing other people doing their work and getting out there and like being able to like, whenever we have workshops, I like our shooting on film workshop because I'm like, go minions, go. Like, find your way, find what you're going to do. Like, so it's really exciting just to sort of see other people.
Yeah, I would say it's kind of that same feeling you probably get with seeing these kids take pictures, being able to, I wouldn't say live vicariously through these people learning something, but it's the excitement and the joy that they have. You get to share in that, and you're sharing it with those people. So I think teaching is fun.
I just like to see any more like creatives. I just like to see creatives because, it's like arts have died. Like I hate to say it, but they have. Like, even when I was in school, which is, it's been a while, the art programs were barely surviving. And from what I've heard, the art programs have pretty much been eliminated in most of these schools. And it's just like the arts have been like just undervalued and taken for granted. And so anything and any time I can see any kind of art program or anybody getting anything creative, I am like so for it in every way. Because it's like, yes, the world has become way too...
Yeah, just kind of experimental learning and hands-on learning, I feel, is going away. Everything's on a screen and we're talking to everything now.
Oh, yeah.
Instead of having a camera in your hands, to learn an instrument, a computer, basically,
Yeah.
It's so valuable.
Yeah.
It's getting missed. So
a lot of people love the aspect of film photography because it goes a little bit beyond digital. Not knocking digital. Obviously, we love it.
I'm out of here.
It has its place. I would be, flying out and shooting Frank Lloyd Wright, not knowing whether you got it or not.
Absolutely, yeah,
is a little concerning.
Yeah,
but waiting until you get back and develop it. But
damn it,
gotta go back. But film photography for a lot of people, I think, is really enjoyable because you get to be hands-on with that through and through. With the process. So shooting it isn't where it stops. It actually continues on through the development, and then whether you scan it and then you continue on to make prints or you make a print in the darkroom, which is like very labor intensive, but very rewarding. It's something that's enjoyable and is definitely an art that is struggling right now just because the film's expensive and it's hard to maintain a dark room or this equipment and have a place for it and the small house that you're living in. It's
hard. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are in it's a hustle culture. A lot of people are just getting by. So it's like, art has to go on like sort of that back burner. So it's like, you got to like make it recognizable to people. You don't necessarily have to make this a career.
Yeah,
it can still be a side thing. Like I always tell people, like, you don't have to, like, not everything has to be like, I don't know, everyone wants to be a brand. I'm like, you don't have to be a brand. Right. You can just have this as a thing like that, it's mentally, it's really good for you. I swear.
Absolutely.
Like, just getting out there. It's like, even digital, you're getting out there. You have to, unless you're just shooting in your house or in like a very close studio all the time, like you got to get out there and do stuff. And that's like incredibly healthy for you. Even if you never share those photos with a single soul. Yeah. Like that's just good for you. Get out there.
I think that therapy is definitely a common thread through whatever kind of art you're doing, whether that's photography or drawing or painting. I know it was for me, and just brief conversation. I know it is for you too as well. I mean, some of the darkest times in my life, I was going out doing photography just because it was good therapy and I'd clear my head and think, and no one else was around. And, I did a lot of early work. I did a lot of long exposures, like under full moons kind of thing. So, you're sitting there with nothing to do for a minute or two while these exposures are going. Yep. And I think that's, people are losing that, and they're going again to these screens and TV and instead of getting out.
Yeah. Getting out's important.
Yeah. I'm so glad you have a gallery going. Again, that's good. I like to see more of that in Phoenix for sure. Yeah. Like, it's kind of funny. The first Fridays like aim toward art, but like the last couple of times I've been down there, I'm like, I don't know. Like, there's less art up here than I would think there should be for.
Changed a bit on Grand, or not on Grand. We're on Grand. That's changed on Grand as well, but it's changed significantly on Roosevelt, which it was very different back when drive-through gallery was open.
It absolutely was. Yeah.
You could walk around. There was people doing art and different things in the street, and the road was blocked off, and there was a giant circle of food trucks in a giant vacant lot and people having fun, and it was different.
I missed it.
Yeah, I do too. And that's why the drive-thru had to close in 2016, because I got the word from, people in the neighborhood that it was going to be another, Mill Avenue 2.0 in a couple of years. And so I decided to kind of jump ship early and get out there. And it's definitely a different scene, and, I'm hoping the Brill Gallery can, help fill a little bit of gap, in there. I don't think we can have enough art galleries,
Yeah.
And I know you guys are with it too, with the photography is just underutilized.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we need more galleries that aren't, gatekeepy ones. Like, you get some that are, I'm not looking at you, Scottsdale, but I'm looking at you, Scottsdale, where it's like super high end and like really expensive work. And it's like, not to bash the work, but to, it feels like, your average everyday person it's not accessible to them either to participate or to buy or to even come in the doors. You feel like intimidated. So we need more spaces that everybody feels welcome. And like, hey, here, come on in. It's cool. Like, you can be a part of this. So that's gatekeeping in art is like, oh God, I hate that.
It's a strange thing. It exists.
It is. It definitely exists. And there's nothing we can do about it, but.
Yeah, and I feel
start
like
our own gallery.
Yeah, there you go. That's what we're doing.
It grinds my gears. I mean, I see where those things come into play, but at the same time, I'm like, man, we just the balance there has to be right.
Yeah. And I think that the culture inside the gallery can evolve and change as well. And I don't necessarily see that. I see, new art and new artists coming in, but the way we're experiencing art on the walls, I think there's a lot of room for opportunity there. And so one of the concepts we're doing for the Monsoon Show, and I actually haven't told anybody this except for the artists, is we're doing, instead of, you see the image and there's a little 3x5 card that says, blah, 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 this artist title, here's the inspiration behind that. that is now going to be audible. So you will scan a QR code in the gallery and it will go to a web page that the artists have already recorded their name, where they're from, but what they want to talk about their piece. So,
Awesome.
Just another like multimedia. I think again, we're talking to everything we own now and listening instead of reading.
Yeah.
So why don't we bring that kind of new Alexa concept into the gallery?
Yeah.
And you get to hear inflection in their voices. I mean, when they're dropping off their artwork for the Monsoon show, they're recording these and it's fun.
Nice.
They all kind of take their own different angle on what they want to talk about, but you can hear it in their voice that they get excited or, just the stories they tell. It's really fun. And I know you guys, when you look at a piece of art, you're like, what's going on here? Like, how did this happen? Like, what, and it's cool to have that mystery, but it's also cool to have that behind the scenes of what this thing is all about or how they got it. So
yeah, that's really cool. It's nice too that it's like, it makes it super accessible to folks that maybe aren't super great at like, like, oh, I'm interested, but they're like a little intimidated by like just coming up to somebody and be like, so what were you thinking?
Yeah,
like,
right.
It's just right there. It's presented to them. So they have an opportunity just to like pull it up and see it.
Yeah. And it just opens the conversation to the artist. And eventually, I want them to sell their pieces. So, I think any background you can give on a piece will only help facilitate a conversation to get to that point if they're interested. So,
absolutely.
It just makes it that much more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is really nice. That actually, that's the thing I want in graveyards. I don't know why I just thought about that. That has nothing to do with anything, but I want to have QR codes on tombstones so you can like see the people and they can talk to you before so you know who's in there.
Yeah.
I wonder who's in there.
That's a great idea.
I think, I actually think that there's a company out there that's doing that.
I love it.
Which is the strangest thing.
In the graveyards?
I'd go over there and slap a different QR code on. Be like, I'm going to mess with people.
You're going to rickroll every single cemetery. Sorry.
I should have like a hologram that pops up that looks like them and they actually talk to you. Right? It'd be cool too.
Just a sound that knocks. I'm still alive.
Oh no. No, I love that. That's really great. That really helps. I think just in general for people to be able to like, oh, that's who it is. Like that's the person behind the work.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. It's so nice. It's a lot of people too that have never shown, because it's just that much more encouraging, I think, for those people to keep going and go out and be like, I can do this. Like this isn't, that intimidation factor gets taken away, I think, when they get to be in a show like that. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. They feel intimidated. They feel like, they compare themselves to so many people and like they don't realize those people are comparing themselves to other people too.
Yeah. Right. And everybody had their first show. So it's not like you can get around that. And, I made tons of mistakes when I was doing it. And, for better and for worse, I learned a lot. And, it's nice to have spaces like we both have that are these, safe communities that we can just be open and honest, and you learn from your mistakes, but you're not kicked out of the gang, because of it.
Yeah,
kind
exactly.
Of thing. So
it's like, welcome everyone.
Yeah, not everybody knows. I mean, there's so much out there when it comes to presenting, not just taking the picture and accomplishing that, but there's a whole world of information that's, you kind of have to know in order to present your work better and properly. And for the longest time, I'd have people come in with their portfolios from ASU when I worked at Office Max, and they were all excited about their portfolio, but they didn't set it up with Bleed. And I'm like, you're this isn't set up right. Like you gotta send this, you gotta go back and get this set up right so we can print it properly and trim it. And it's one of those things that you don't think about is, okay, well, there's extra steps here that go beyond that. And getting to have that, that taste of what it's like to do those things is good without getting, shunned.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So, I mean, I learned quite a bit just showing, my pieces at the drive-through gallery and figuring out, okay, well, how do I do this better next time? Or what did I do wrong here? What's missing? And it always room for improvement.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I don't know if you do it already, but that would be a cool like workshop thing for you to do, Daniel.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you know more than I do about all that stuff. That's your world. So that would be very cool to have a little get together and talk about bleeding and
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be fun.
There's a ton of that stuff that like very few. That's always that weird thing though. It's like the artist / business person that doesn't go together so well. Like it takes a rare bird to like have both.
Yeah.
And because most time it's like a very different personality and have that nice in between bleed. You have a lot of that, Dan. You like for sure.
Yeah.
Like, which is
Yeah,
good.
I'm kind of nerdy when it comes to
You're
that
a little
stuff.
nerdy.
Oh, you should be. I mean, I think Brian's the same way too. I mean, the presentation you guys do on your stuff is awesome.
Yep.
And I think that is an art form in itself, minus the photograph.
Mm-hmm.
The presenting is super important. And I love how you and Brian do your stuff. It's amazing.
It's I think in high school I spent, some of the time in my photography class learning how to shoot. And as soon as I figured out how to shoot the camera and develop and make a print, I spent the majority of the rest of the class just cutting mats and doing it over and over and over again. And, being critical of like how the tape is presented on the inside of the mat, which you'll never see.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm like, I want this to look good. If somebody opens this up and like, obviously this is, first year photography stuff. So it wasn't really that great.
Yeah.
But, I was like extra critical of all these other aspects. So, but I learned a lot with that. So that's, I don't know. That's
a skill. Yeah. That's probably valuable to some people out there that need it. I know I had a show, and if I would have done myself, I probably would have just put some tape on the back of my print and just popped it up on the wall. Like, there we go. It's done. That's all we need. Right.
Yeah.
Dan's
I hope Stacey with getting
there's a lot.
A little bit nicer.
It looks a lot nicer.
They were IKEA frames, but
it still looks very good.
When you're buying, was it 15 frames? You kind of have to find some budget options.
I think it was 18. I think I only had room for 15 of the 18, but yeah, like you got to frame all. That's expensive. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up? But my solution literally would have been tape.
Yeah.
Done.
But yeah. I don't know. Photography. Love it. That's what we're here for.
Absolutely. So is the gallery going to be completely photography, or is this, it is, it's going to be 100%?
Yep.
Okay. That's wonderful.
Yeah. All photography, different genres of photography. So this is Monsoon, which we did, I think I mentioned, we did Monsoon show at the drive-thru as well. Yep. So this is just kind of continuing that tradition. It's such a cool, like local, last night, that Haboob last night was nuts.
Oh my gosh, that thing was crazy.
Oh yeah.
That was scary.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I've been scared of any of the storms that have come through. That was the first one. I was like, ooh.
Yeah. And I actually just found out before I came over here that one of the selected artists that's showing in the Monsoon, Fox 10 interviewed her. She took a great image of a boob last night.
Oh, awesome.
It was on tonight at 6 p.m. So
rad.
But yeah, the gallery will be all photography, but kind of different ways of doing that. So this is a group show, Monsoon, and that was important for me to do that as the opening show for the gallery. Absolutely. It's not about me. This gallery is something bigger than just me selling and showing my stuff. But that is also part of the gallery, is showing my stuff too. So the next one will be a Frank Lloyd Wright exhibit in March, which will be all of my photography talking about Wright's organic principles. The next one will be probably my stuff on one side of the wall and then a guest photographer on the other side of the wall. And I think that's more the business model I want to do at the gallery, is myself represented, and just as important is another photographer, local photographer, both first time showers and, established photographers as well.
Yeah.
Sometimes those images can look exactly the same. Yep. They just haven't had that opportunity yet. So, so it'll be both of those.
That's nice.
And constantly changing.
Is there any all photography only galleries in Phoenix?
I'm sure there's a few.
I can't think of any that are photography completely, and that's it. Like, mix anything else in. There's not enough. No. If we can't even name,
if we have to think about it,
that means there's not enough of them.
Yeah. In the past we've shown quite a few photographers pre-COVID. Of course, COVID threw a wrench in a lot of things, but we were showing stuff every first Friday.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Mad dash to get everything set up in there.
Yeah, right.
I'd take the day off and then hang stuff. I remember one day there was 42 pieces that I had to put up on a wall, and I was like, well, we have this 15-foot section here, and eye width is about 3 feet here. So,
Yeah.
and it was a mad dash to get all these pieces up, but it's awesome seeing another space in Phoenix that's doing a gallery.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been lacking on our shows. I think we've had the same gallery wall up for
6 months, 7 months,
6,
maybe
7
a year almost.
It's
I don't
been a long
know.
time.
So
Nobody's come back for their prints either. We're keeping them, guys.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. If you want your prints, you can. You know who you are.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've had the same one up for. We just kind of got stuck with other stuff. But yeah, I'm like, well.
Yeah, you guys are doing a lot of stuff over there.
It's a long show.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm not busy enough. Let's do this now.
Well, we'll have coming up in the Grand Avenue Festival, so that'll be November
4th.
4th. November 4th is the Grand Avenue Festival,
nice.
and then we're going to do an all open show to that. So we're going to do a yard sale. Yeah. So we'll have in the backyard, we'll have that open and people can put tables and bring all their photography equipment. Everyone, bring your box that you have of stuff that you want to sell or trade. And then you can do that in the backyard. And then we're going to have everybody bring in prints to sell. We want to make it super accessible. So we're going to put up, I think, lines and like paper clips and literally like clip art up so people can come in from the street and just have like really nice price points, maybe like $20 a print or something. We haven't figured out the details, but people can come in and be like, hey, $20, just hand it over and then grab a print, like make it super duper easy. Yeah. So that'll be kind of a show because we're inviting.
Yeah, we're inviting a bunch of different people.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're going to invite everybody to come in and bring their prints and sell them in there. I think it'd be great people to get them out.
A lot of interest. So there's people that are photographers who don't really make prints, that just like the gearheads.
Yeah.
That can bring their stuff that they want to trade off and, get something different or just buy more. And then there's people who, go the direction of actually they have one camera and they make a bunch of prints from. So, so we'll have a mix of different people there.
Yeah.
So
that'll be good.
Excited for that.
Because Grand Avenue Fest is we're still a little arty down there.
Oh, absolutely. I love Grand Avenue.
Yeah, Grand has a lot of art down there. So
that's great.
And that was incredibly busy last year for it. So I think this year will be even more.
Yeah, should be fun.
If we could just get the road shut down, we'd be in business.
Yeah.
I think it will
technically
be
a highway.
Yeah.
It makes it a little difficult for those huge crowds and then cars coming through.
Just started a few blocks over. It's fine.
You get those trolley cars going on that Grand Avenue again. That would be sweet.
That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have the trolley museums open there now.
Yeah.
They weren't open for a while. I don't think. I know we kept walking by and they were never ever open, but then they were open like not all that long ago. And we're like, oh, we can go in. We finally went into it. It's very small.
Yeah. Yeah. They're open like Saturdays or
they get some random hours. They always have a nice little band playing out front on First Fridays.
Yeah.
They've been getting like little bands out there, which has been really nice.
Yeah. So speaking of streetcars, the Brill Gallery is named after the streetcar line, Brill.
Oh.
So it was one of the first lines to come out from downtown Phoenix, went east on Pierce, and then made a left and goes north on 10th Street. So it goes right next to the house.
Okay.
So that's where that name comes from.
Okay.
It's the Brill line. And that now is Coronado, but it used to go all the way up into Coronado on there.
Oh, wow. I didn't know it went that far.
Yeah.
When they stopped the trolleys, when did that end here?
50s?
Probably,
Something like that. Yeah. I mean, they were big. There was extensive lines. I think there was maybe 10 lines or something that went out.
That's why those roads are so tight over there.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird the way they're set up in that neighborhood.
That's such a fun neighborhood.
Yeah.
I love going over there. I used to go over there a lot when Pueblo used to be over there. Now they moved right beside us, which is kind of dangerous for me. But I used to love whenever I go Pueblo, I go take a little neighborhood walk. I'm like, this neighborhood's so cute.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got their own little style over there.
Absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot going on.
There's so much going on. Yeah. There's like every house seems to have a different thing. I'm like, is that a dinosaur? Wait, is that a cherry on the roof? Like there's just so many things to look at.
So the cherry on the roof.
Yeah.
We're right across the street from the cherry on the roof.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that building.
Yeah.
Is it a cherry? I thought it was an apple.
It's got a big stem. It's a cherry.
apple.
It's a big debate, but I believe it's a cherry.
I think it's a cherry. That stem does not look apple. It's too big. It's too long.
But it looks like an apple.
Yeah, like it doesn't. Yeah, the fruit of it doesn't quite look.
Yeah.
So did that used to be on the
cherry.
freeway up here? Do you know the story behind that?
The story I heard, it was a bar on Mill Avenue that shut down.
Oh, okay.
And they somehow...
the cherry apple used to be on something else?
Yeah, it was on a bar, I think on Mill Avenue at some point.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
And then when it got transferred over
on my house.
Yeah. So this is a great place to announce this. If you know anyone that's got a 30-foot pineapple or banana that I can put on my roof, let me know.
That'd be amazing. I would
awesome.
I would welcome that in my house. As Dan says, my Pee Wee Goth house. That'd fit in really well.
The cool thing is to put fruit on your roof.
Apparently.
It's the new jams.
Fruit salad corner. I mean, come on.
You should, just to like one up them, you should like get a bigger fruit and put it on there and just have them be like, they just put a fruit on their thing. Yeah, I did. That's right. It's bigger.
Give people directions. That's right across the street from the church. No, the banana.
Yeah.
It's the house with the banana.
It's a weird world though when you say, "Oh yeah, I'm across from the house with a cherry on it." Like,
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's like so random. Like Phoenix is like that though. I've lived in a lot of places, and for as ugly as Phoenix is, and Phoenix, you were ugly. I'm sorry. I'm gonna say it. You were ugly. There's so much character that's in it as well at the same time that is not in other places that are a little nicer looking. like traditionally, like where you drive through like, oh, this is a beautiful neighborhood. Like you don't get a lot of that here, but you do get a lot of the quirkiness, which I really like. People really kind of a little off kilter, but
it's the heat.
It's the heat. The heat has baked us a little bit.
Yeah. And it's like both sides of downtown are like that. You know, Garfield and then Grand is kind of the quirky side over there too.
Yeah.
It's cool.
It's a little bit.
But yeah, I'm a big fan of garlic. Of Garfield.
Garlic's good too.
Garlic's good.
Block Studio is there too.
Yeah.
Little photography studio there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had an open house, I don't know, maybe a month or two, actually longer than that now. And went in there, and the first time in there was awesome. It's like state of the art in there. The owners were super cool. We chatted it up for a while. Yeah, they're great.
They have a second location on Van Buren, which is awesome. I actually went there first before they had the new spot.
Oh, okay.
And which has been there for 4 or 5 years now. But Block Studio is great. Love their studio, and the owners are definitely, they're chill dudes.
Yeah. So. Van Buren, and what's the cross street to that first
11th?
one?
I think, or 10th.
Oh, it's right there then.
Yeah, it's not super far,
Van Buren's starting to make a little bit of a little mark. Same with over on McDowell.
Yeah.
Like, they're starting just to peak up a little bit. I'm like, look at this. Like there's some interesting stuff.
Our friends, Their Space, which they used to be in Mesa, 2 younger guys, basically it's a space where you can go screen print. And so we get our t-shirts done there. Stacy and I actually print them. And they have a kind of a similar structure to the lab, where you come in and you can kind of do like a workshop, but they have a membership base. So you basically pay this membership, and they show you the first time how to screen print, which isn't super complicated. And then you basically can use the studio. You block out time and then come in and use the space. So they're super awesome, and they're right down the street, just 16th Street in Van Buren, I think it is. So
where that checkered building is, they're in that same, the one the checkers.
Yeah,
they're literally
the
right there. They're right beside it.
Yeah.
They've actually, we got to go back. They started cleaning up in there because they just moved in, so they had a lot of work to do to clean that space up. But from the pictures, looks like they're doing good.
We're going back there before this podcast comes out, actually. But we'll have some new shirts. So
cool.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's good to see anything blooming art wise in Phoenix.
We need it.
We definitely need
Keep it coming.
Yes.
Well, we'll send a lot of people your way to the Brill.
I'm excited to see that show. I love the people that do the monsoon stuff too. Like I know we have one of our friends is in the show, Tanisa. Shout out Tanisa song.
Yeah.
Tanisa. But one of those people, like where they hear the thunder and the lightning and stuff, and the rest of us are cowering in our homes, like being like, I don't want to breathe that air. I don't want to get anything near that. They're running out with their camera as fast as they can to like some high point that's like super not the safest.
Right.
Like go guys. Like because everyone loves seeing like their photos, their videos, like and stuff. So it's always fun. Those folks are always they're braver than I think.
Yeah.
I went out like the door last night when it was storming, and I came immediately back in. I'm like, nope. Someone's going to hit me in the head. I'm not doing it. But then, for sure, these people, every one of them was probably outside of their house last night.
Oh, yeah.
Taking pictures.
Yeah. So I'm excited to see the monsoon stuff.
Yeah.
That'll be very cool.
Well, awesome. Thank you, Andrew, for being on. I don't know if you got anything else.
No. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure we have more questions. But yeah, thank you for being on.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. Excited for the new venture of the Brill Gallery Studio in Garfield, and excited for the first show there. We'll definitely be there. That's September 22nd. And when does it open? What time?
6 to 10.
6
There
to
we
10.
go. 6 to 10, guys.
Yep.
All
There'll
right.
be
That's a Saturday or Friday?
Friday. Yeah. And there will be a time lapse video aspect of it too. We're setting up a screen in the backyard. So
Fun.
every hour on the hour, we'll have a little time lapse
Awesome.
from 4 different photographers going too.
Oh,
cool.
very cool.
But yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
is great. And I mean, Daniel, you guys have been doing so much for
Yep.
the art community, and we all appreciate it. So
Thank you.
You keep growing and giving opportunities to the young and old artists everywhere. And we thank you for that, man. I really appreciate it. It's great. Doing a great job.
Appreciate you giving us a start.
Yeah. Yeah. all comes around. I love
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. So
Yep.
where can people find your work and learn more about what you got going on?
Yeah, probably my website really kind of has everything. That'll have Brill Gallery information. That'll have the Frank Lloyd Wright stuff on it too. And it is, you can put in my name if you can spell it, Andrew Pielage, or the short one is apizm.com.
Okay.
And that'll get you to all the social media and stuff as well.
Perfect. We'll
Wonderful.
include that in the show notes. So if you're listening, check it out. And give Andrew and Broline a follow on Instagram and social. And
Absolutely. We need it. Yep.
And hopefully we get to chat with you again soon.
I hope so. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks again.
Thanks, Andrew.